Your favorite couples here so easily accessible. Grab your headphones, hit play, turn up the decibels. Master of the pod like a young Skywalker. Shout out to homie Yoda, cause great all we talkers. The crew is firm, so it's love to AZ. You signed the Tempe. Scorch the competition simply. Sure to get you high like some true West Coasters. Look at the flick of the wrist, one guardian Leviosa. LA is always sunny, Comic-Con with honeys. Pokemon and Dunny, sneaker hype, be sticking money. And Rachel rolls her eyes and see Lee made it funny. Time flies and now my flux capacitor is running. You not rocking with us, you like a muggle wizard, see. Just stupefy yourself with the wave of wizardry. Like Mario standing still in the left's a moving screen. A world full of nerds, but only two nerdly. The dopest show you ever heard, you see. It will be. In your eardrum like an infectious beat. We complete. They like when the short and long hear me. Cause we the nerdlies, the nerdly. The dopest show you ever heard, you see. It will be. In your eardrum like an infectious beat. We complete. They like when the short and long hear me. Cause we the nerdlies, the nerdly.
Hello, and welcome to the Nerdlies. I do that same pitch every single time I say it. It's probably not great. Probably should vary it up a little bit. I'm Chris.
I'm Rachel.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well as can be during this time. Hope you guys are safe and your families are safe and everything. You know, the as we like to call it, because Game Grumps calls it this, the Backstreet Boys World Tour is still raging on out there.
Those boys love to dance. Not be stopped.
If you didn't know, that's something that apparently the YouTube algorithm can figure out when you're talking about situation going on.
Yeah, they can figure out whether or not you're talking about COVID, or if you have COVID in written down on the screen somehow. They can detect that as well.
And they sometimes suppress your videos.
Yeah. So anytime it was just the first time they had to talk about it, they Aaron told Danny oh yeah, we can't say the name of it. He's like, he's like, okay, well, what are we gonna call it? He's like, I don't know, just call it the Backstreet Boys Reunion Tour or something.
So every episode
they just talk about the Backstreet Boys. Pretty
funny. But yeah,
awesome.
But that's sometimes what we like to refer to it now. Because we're also affected by it. I'm starting to go back to work a little bit. I don't know if we talked last time. Rachel was going right back to work, and now it is closed again because of people not really going with the restrictions, and still people getting sick, which is sad. But hopefully we got to do what we got to do. Stay safe, look for opportunities where we can, and that's where we're at. So a lot has happened, but not a lot since last time we were on, which is why this episodes have been so like once a month the last couple months, because there's just not too much happening. There's news here and there.
If it was not the Backstreet Boys going on, we would have had at least 2 or 3 conventions to talk to you about, and we would have already gone to Comic-Con, which is nuts to me. Yeah. That that's come and gone. It's
And we would be in the deep prep for Star Wars Celebration right now. Yep. Basically.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
But I would also probably still be in debt, so it's you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
I'd probably be even more in debt because I was planning on buying 2 new costumes this year. Which I still am, but I'm waiting until the end of the year now. So anywho, so I'm that's basically, I feel what I've turned this into is just taking more time to perfect the cosplays that I want to do for fun, and then earn the money to make the ones that I can't afford to make, and then or make myself, and then I'm just trying to find different little side projects and photography things that we can do to get out and explore and be creative and feel like we did something.
Yeah, which is a lot of what we've been doing. Yeah. We've been trying to go different places, different areas to shoot, try out different types of shoots and everything like that.
Oh, and I thought of another idea for something we could do today, so I'll have to tell you about it.
Well, write that down, and then we will try to execute that as well. But yeah, no, it's been interesting, trying to get that creative, I don't know, get those creative juices flowing and do the things without having a set goal for them, I guess, is what the thing is. Like, I mean, my goal is always to try to get as much cool photography done as I can possibly do. But now it's like, okay, what can I do besides just the photography? Can I learn how to light things? Can I learn how to edit things differently? And that sort of stuff. Push my abilities to do that. So it's a lot of little things trying to like figure out how to do it. But yeah, so trying to keep our creative juices flowing. But also there's like random news here and there. So basically, before we talk about what we were going to talk about for most of the episode, which is the Umbrella Academy Season 2, which we're very, very excited to see, and got to watch right when it dropped that day. Got to binge it all day that day. And
10 hours.
And a big thank you to our friend Cynthia for hanging with us as well. She was kind enough to Skype in with us while we were watching the show.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was a
good.
great experience. Like, because, like, yeah, it's like if we could have, we would have had, like, an actual, viewing party, but we can't. So that was cool because we could, like, at least look at each other and see our reactions to different parts because we tried to start at the same time every time, and so it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But before we get to that, a couple little just housekeeping, like, news things. The Disney Plus, or Disney, just announced that since Mulan right now is still like pretty much in limbo, they finally decided that Mulan is going to come to Disney Plus. It's not going to be completely free when it comes out. It's going to be $30 to purchase for like to rent for the 48 hours. But yeah, it's coming out September 4th.
It seems weird to me that it's just a rental and for that much money. That
I mean, I get it to an extent because they are losing out on all of the box office for that movie.
True.
So they're getting the subscription price from you, obviously.
Yeah.
But for the business standpoint, so that they don't lose everything on it, I think that's why. I don't think that's like I don't think it's an outrageous charge. It does sound like a lot for 48 hours. But if we were going to go to the movie, we'd spend $28 just getting the tickets.
Yeah.
We'd have to park for $2 or $3, and we'd have to get our concessions to go see the movie as early as that. So it's really more so like paying for the early access, I guess, because you could wait because it's gonna be on Disney Plus. No matter what, it'll be on Disney Plus. It's just a matter of if you want to watch it on September 4th or if you want to wait till like December when they finally release it for free. So. Yeah. What's it worth to you? And if you get a bunch of people, I mean, you shouldn't get a bunch of people that don't live with you over to your house. But if you have, two of us at home to watch it, and if we like it enough, we watch it maybe even twice. And then you have families that have 3 or 4 kids. If they want to watch it more than once, I think you get your money's worth out of $30, maybe. I can't remember how much Trolls was, because Trolls came out and that was like, I think it was cheaper. Possibly. But I can't remember how much it was for the rental.
I don't know.
Because it wasn't a straight purchase either. But yeah, it is. I agree with you to an extent that the $30 it sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot. Yeah. But who knows? We'll see how this goes. Hopefully, it sucks because, all Asian cast, I was very excited about it. I really wanted to see this thing go. Obviously, it's not without controversy.
Like, how much is a Blu-ray nowadays?
Blu-ray is around $30, $32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't they just charge me an extra $20 and then can I keep it?
Yeah.
For an extra $20, can I just have it forever?
I mean, maybe.
Like, I don't know.
But I think it's just because they know that they're gonna put it on their service anyway. So why charge you an extra amount to keep it when, I don't know. I could have seen it go down to maybe like 15, 20 to 15 would be okay. It just seems like 30 might be a little bit much for some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see it. Was always very impressed by
it was supposed to come out on my birthday. Yeah. It was supposed to come out March 27th, and I was gonna have like I don't know if we were gonna do a midnight show. We were gonna do like
we're definitely gonna be there for the premiere thing, for it. Yeah, for sure.
But alas, the Backstreet Boys.
It would have just been you. You would have been nursing your tattoo and calmly sitting there watching Mulan that day. That would have been the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Backstreet Boys World Tour. Anyway, that's pretty much all we had for like movie stuff, I think. We still don't have dates really for like, I mean, there are dates for movies that are out there, but I don't trust any of them. Like, not one. Everything keeps getting pushed back. Yeah. I still don't know when Wonder Woman's going to come out, really. Like, Tenet, which is the huge Christopher Nolan movie, keeps getting pushed back. I don't even think that... I know that Skyfall got pushed from April to November, and I don't even think we're going to hit that. No. I don't know if I... This is a discussion I was having with a coworker. Would you really even feel comfortable right now going to a theater to watch a movie?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Like
even if we're spread out, no.
Yeah.
It's too much of a confined area. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like,
well, like drive-ins, I think would be cool.
It's like, what's the name of the movie?
Oh, I'm trying to think.
Outbreak.
Yeah.
It's literally Outbreak. You're just in a theater and someone sneezes and you're like, all right, I'm out. Peace out.
We're all dead.
We're all in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know that I would trust it at this moment. Unless the numbers go way, way down, or like I just don't know if I trust people to keep their mask on the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, and like, yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know if I really mentioned it on here, but like, I'm definitely almost 100% considering getting a different kind of job because I just don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel safe going back, and looking back on it, I feel like I shouldn't have gone at all, and I should have just waited because we really got shut down like the week after. So that means that I wasn't wrong in thinking that I shouldn't have been going back because it obviously wasn't safe enough. And yeah, I mean, there's multiple reasons for that, but like, I'm definitely like probably not going back to work in that capacity. I want to try to find something different. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't feel safe doing until I know that, you know, either there's a vaccine or something approximate to that, or the numbers, like the numbers go down considerably. But
yes, it would have to be very, very stark contrast to what's going on right now before I felt very like just super comfortable with being in that type of crowd. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyway. Mm-hmm. So not too much on the movie side, right? But there is, I mean, we did get to play some games over the last couple weeks. Rachel's always out for cool point and click adventure games, and I like a lot of we both like a lot of the indie games, even though they're kind of weird, and if they're side scrollers, mostly I'll be playing those. Mm-hmm. But we did get to play 2. Was that right? Just the 2, right? Mm-hmm. Let's have you talk about Beyond the Steel Sky. This was a game that was was suggested to you through Steam.
Yeah. Because usually when I try to find games, I want to find things that are similar to like Riven or Myst, because that's my jam. And yeah, this game got suggested to me, and apparently it is like a sequel to a very, very old game from 1994. And I can't remember what console it came out for. It might have been for the Commodore, excuse me. But yeah, so it's a sequel to that game, and it's very like Philip K. Dick Blade Runner ish, like kind of dystopian wasteland type situation where there's like this upper crust of rich people and then the other people that just live kind of in the slums or whatever beneath them, but they have all this technology. And long story short, like someone's kidnapping children, and you're this guy who I guess used to be like a part of the elite and then kind of like moved away or something like that. And it's kind of set in like almost like an Australian dystopian future. And anyway, so it played more like a Telltale game, which I haven't actually myself played a Telltale game. I've watched Chris play Telltale games. And the only, I don't know. I guess maybe I don't like that style of game where there's so much dialogue and like you're constantly having to like press everyone for like every last little bit of information and to get to the next step. And whereas I'm used to like having like little to no human interaction and just having to like figure out puzzles that are within a space. And this one was
you love the introvert of video games.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much me. Yeah, so I just got like kind of tired pretty quickly of like having to talk to every single character.
Yeah.
And like get all this information, and then even then like the correct way to do the thing was never completely obvious, and I usually don't like to have to use walkthroughs, but it was early on where I was like, I'm so frustrated already that I don't know that I can go without not looking at it. So yeah, I felt like I had to use the walkthrough for the whole thing, because not only was the dialogue like a lot, but then like just the mechanics of, there's something about like walking through a space and then having to control the camera with the mouse that is super disorienting to me, and I don't really like it. If it's like a point and click where you can look around, that's a little different, but like when you're moving forward with your character in the third person and then moving the camera around with your mouse, it's just a little like off-putting. And then what sucked was like you'd have to go talk to a character, and in other games like this I played, they're usually just standing there, but for some reason in this game the people you need to talk to are just like moving around in a specific pattern. And sometimes you can't get them to stop, and you have to click on them on this one little dot that's on their person to talk to them, and if they move away, the option goes away. Yeah,
because it's like a proximity thing.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. And then there's also a lot of puzzles where you have this like hacking thing, and you have to be near certain things. So there's part of the game where I had to like sit in one place and then like keep turning just minutely until I was in a spot where I was getting 3 signals instead of 2 in order to like change 3 things. But then even then when you have that, it's like 3 different like modules, and the rating is so tiny because there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Like, so yeah, I was excited because it got really good reviews. I'm not really sure why. Now that I've played it, it wasn't terrible. It was interesting, but then the ending was like almost 100% the ending of Tron Legacy.
Basically, yeah.
Except for like the child kidnapping stuff, but like it's essentially like he'd put this robot in charge of this city, and he wanted to make it the quote unquote perfect city, and we all know how robots feel about perfection, and like AI is like humans are not that thing. So proven clearly by 2020 in general. Yeah. But yeah. But no, I anyway,
agree with you.
Yeah, like so essentially that was the thing, was like he was telling him like, oh, because so this robot had like set up these like 8 different like facets of human happiness, and so like there was a head of each department of that, but it turned out that they were all Joey programs and different, like, so they were all, one was an old man and one was a young man and one was a woman. They were all like the same entity, but he basically had outlined this like system of making everyone happy, where like everyone was satisfied, everyone had a job, everyone like could earn like popularity points almost and stuff like that. And like anyway, then he finally kind of said like, and so basically he admitted that they were taking these children and brainwashing them because they weren't happy, and he wanted to make everybody happy, and so like this whole thing. But anyway, so I mean, I feel like if you were a fan of the original, you probably like it a little bit more because you actually know what these characters are, and apparently they were like important in the other story, and so it makes sense. But the graphics were okay. They had some kind of cool parts and stuff, but overall, like, I just wasn't super impressed by it. And like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like it was worth the money. So
yeah, I mean, it was a kind of expensive game. It was like $27, $28.
Yeah,
on Steam.
Like that.
So it was a little.
But I guess now
heavy.
I just kind of know that that's not the type of. So if I realize that it's the type of game where I'm having to like do a lot of dialogue and choice making in that way, then I probably don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was okay. But I just didn't feel like I super enjoyed it.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I will say some of the voice acting was pretty good. I did enjoy some of the voice acting. I thought the animation was pretty
I didn't
cool.
actually look any of it up, but some of them sounded very familiar, so I'm sure they're like pretty well-known voice actors.
Australian voice actors. But yeah, no, I thought it was kind of interesting, but yeah, I could see how they could be exhaustive to have to do all the dialogue options to progress the story. Because there were certain things that you should have been able to do without even having to talk to a figure or whatever. I know we were stuck on one puzzle that we were like constantly just going around like, which thing do I have to do so that this stupid bear will activate or whatever. So I get that. I'm glad you trudged through and got through that. We looked through some of the other indie games and fell upon this game called Carrion. That's Carrion. Which was like what is it, 16-bit or 8-bit? Something like those, that like digital pixel art sort of style.
Something around there. Yeah.
Essentially a side scroller. You play as the monster terrorizing a science facility. So you're basically this like biomass sort of thing, and you're just terrorizing this thing you're trying to get out. It's free on Xbox Game Pass if you have that, but it's I think $20 for any on Nintendo Switch. It's on Steam. It's on Xbox. I'm sure it's on PS4 as well. But it was a tiny like indie game, but it was phenomenal. I really, really liked how it is. It was very simple. You play as the monster, so some of the deaths are very gruesome, which are pretty fun because it's a combination of you can try to brute force it, but there's also elements of trying to stealth things, different levels of enemies and that sort of thing, and different accomplishments that you could do. Because eventually you get like 6 different abilities for the monster. You can be like a parasite. You can break barriers. You can absorb explosions. That sort of thing. So there's a lot of little parts to it that were a lot of fun. I was going to say that the only thing that I didn't like about it is that because of the way that the monster is, you're just this big tentacle monster. The controls were a little bit floaty and weird because you couldn't figure out where the center of mass of the big ass monster was. So trying to like finesse certain puzzles is very difficult. And the other thing about it is that the map is not super intuitive because there are parts where you have to go back to a certain section and then go forward because now you have new abilities and you can unlock new areas. So that wasn't super intuitive. I think I could have figured it out, but we did end up using the walkthrough for the later half just to try to speed things up and get through the story. I will say the story is pretty fun because you kind of think that you're just getting to be like a fucked up monster trying to get out, but then it kind of gives you a backstory as to why you're in the spot that you are, because like there's flashbacks to show you what happened and how they found it or whatever, that sort of thing. I thought it was very interesting, like little subtle things. There's no dialogue in the game at all besides like just written things on like boards for like completion percentage and that sort of stuff, but other than that there was no dialogue.
And yelling.
Yeah, a lot of yelling. A lot of yelling. What did you like about it? You were very intrigued by it when I was playing.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hoping for more. I mean, I always hope with the indie games that there's going to be interesting, like, lore and story. Because that's what always drives me to indie games.
Yeah.
So, like, I was hoping for a little bit more of that, but I just thought, like, anything that, like, kind of twists your perception and like uses different like game mechanics that you've ever seen before is always like super intriguing to me. So it kind of reminded me of Inside.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where like spoiler alert, at the end of that you are also a blob monster and you start off. So it's like almost the opposite. It's like in this game, like you start off as a blob monster, and then occasionally you are human beings, and then at the end you're a human being, and then in Inside you are a human being, and then eventually you become a blob monster, and then you're just a blob monster.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. So like as horrifying as that is, too, like that one had like a really interesting like storyline because like everything you went through, you were seeing like first you thought they were harvesting people, and then you see that they're turning people into like weird zombie robot things, and then there are zombie people that you can just control, and then there's like these water zombies that try to get you, and and so on, and through the game, like, just there's always new things happening, and
Yeah, which a lot of this game was
Yeah.
too. You're getting new abilities to do and unlock certain areas, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
So I think that's why I gravitated to it, just because Inside was such a creepy and cool, but like very different take on that kind of game. So I was just like, oh, that looks awesome. Like, I just want to see like what they have, and so like as an observer, it was super enjoyable. But I do wish that there was a little bit more of the cutscenes and stuff.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just because I crave like backstory and all that.
Totally
And I also
fine.
kind of wish the ending was a little bit more grandiose, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But at the same
It's a
time,
very-
like I said, that's kind of how Inside was. It was very
Yeah.
just kind of nonchalant and like, this is just it. Like, this is how it ends.
It's
like,
a very quiet ending,
Yeah.
for sure. Like, compared to how much, like, violence you cause
Mm-hmm.
in certain battles that you have to do, certain puzzles you have to complete,
Yeah.
like, the ending is very, very, like, just kind of docile,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting. It's an interesting choice.
yeah.
But yeah, I would very much recommend that game if you feel like playing a little fun, like, side-scroller where you get to be a blob monster. And I will say the puzzles are relatively intuitive. I really, honestly, the only thing I really needed the walkthrough for the most part, was to make sure that I knew which path to go down. Because, like I said, some of
It's
the maps...
definitely a labyrinth.
some of the
different
maps can be
places.
very, very difficult. And if you get lost, you can go back to an area like 6 or 7 times. So I would use the walkthrough for that. But the other puzzles, and the fights, you can figure out. It'll take a little bit of time, but you can figure them out yourself. And they're relatively intuitive to what skills you have at that moment. That was pretty much it for video games, I think, right? The only other thing was that the Marvel Avengers game I saw, they are announcing that for a PS4 exclusive, they are letting Spider-Man be a playable character in the Marvel Avengers game, which I think is kind of stupid.
Which character are they having?
So the Marvel Avengers game on PS4, they have an exclusive DLC playable character of Spider-Man.
Oh.
So if you buy it on Xbox, you don't get to play as Spider-Man. That seems
Well, just
kind of short-sighted
Sony.
and dumb, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's Sony being Sony, as they
I mean, I guess
always
so,
have
yeah.
been. Like, they're very protective of Spider-Man.
but I just feel like, if you're gonna make that game, that's got to be a character that's universal. Like, I don't really understand how you can even make a story where Spider-Man's playable, where the Xbox experience wouldn't feel hollow without that character.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah,
Because,
it
like,
feels
you
dumb.
can't just throw him in as a side character and just fit him in anywhere,
Yeah.
right? You'd have to adjust. I would assume you'd have to adjust the story so that you can play as Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. That doesn't really float well with me. And I personally was never... I'm still not interested that interested in that game. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that...
Yeah, just...
It's kind of meh. Like,
Yeah.
I even saw the gameplay just recently. I was like, it looks kind of good, but it also looks like it could be very, very repetitive.
Yeah.
And I don't even like the designs.
Yeah.
Like, if I liked some of the designs of the characters, I would be
Yeah, it
more...
looks too, like, plasticky, I guess. There's
Yeah.
not enough, like... I don't know. Yeah, there's, like... Well, because, like, Telltale, their art style lended very well to, like, Batman and,
Yeah.
like, Guardians and stuff
Because
like
they kind of
that.
have that, like, cell animated 3D sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
Where this Avengers game is just that, like, straight up kind of Final Fantasy, like, CGI.
Yeah.
And that depends on, like, having I don't know if it's called... What it would be called. Like, there's a specific type of design style that works with that. And I think they went with one that just doesn't work visually for me.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I don't know what it is. And I love the Avengers. I love that
I
shit.
know,
I
yeah.
want to play Marvel games all the time if they're good. But there's nothing that entices me about that.
Yeah.
Although I do remember now that I remember when we were at San Diego Comic-Con last year and had the booth with some of the costumes there.
Mm-hmm.
And we were walking through and I was like, I just really don't like that Captain America costume. And I turned and the Sony, the like Square attendant was like right next to me and he just gave me a shoulder shrug like, I don't know, man. What do you want me to do about it? I wasn't complaining it to you. I was just putting that out in the ether. Sorry, buddy. I know you got to work on the booth. I'm just
Yeah.
expressing a general
stating my
opinion.
states, yeah.
I have no influence on this game, and neither do you apparently. 'Cause
Yeah.
you're just here. Like, oh, whatever.
You're just the shoulder shrugger. Unless you want to suck Sony's dick, then move along.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty much all we have for gaming. We'll go into our.
Except.
Oh, what? Oh, yes. Sorry. How could I forget? Rachel, obviously, in her love and continuing love for Myst, Riven, and all Scion products, she attempted a speed run. Finally, an official one. And
I'm currently I don't think anyone's knocked me off of that, but I'm number 1 for PC, or not PC
for iOS.
For iOS, I am number 18th for PC now.
Yeah,
but that makes me happy anyway, just because it's the best that I'd ever done in times. Because for a while I was like stuck at like 13, 14 minutes, and then I got it under 11, which I was pretty impressed by.
Yeah,
and. I mean, the record holder for first place, I believe, did under 6 minutes, and
yeah, I think he's at like 5:43.
It's like ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of cheating, but like, because it kind of is. I mean, they basically the only way you can do it as fast as he does it is you have to install like a macro where you can use both your keyboard to move and the mouse simultaneously, which is not the case in the actual game. I think technically you can use the arrows, but you can't use WASD, which is more intuitive for most people.
Yeah.
So
it's a traditional gamer setup.
And yeah, so but normally when you play the game, normally it's point and click, and so you just use your mouse and everything for moving around. Mm-hmm. So that is how I play it. I don't like I basically know what it would take to learn how to do it, and I'd have to like basically completely relearn how to play that game because my mind just isn't set up, and I'd have to like memorize keystrokes, but I just don't feel like doing. So, I mean, I could definitely probably at some point get my time possibly even lower than 10 minutes, but I think eventually I'll just be, because there's like a line of people that can do it in about eight something, and I think I'm probably ultimately going to be there. I don't think I'll ever get to the 5 or 6 minute just because my brain just doesn't work that fast. And some of these people, their brains just work that fast and they can do it, and like and also that they've committed the time and effort to doing it, which is great. And I have a mind for memorization as well, but like I don't know that I have the patience to learn it that way, because I get frustrated with myself just doing it normally if I fuck up. So yeah, it's just a lot of repetition and stuff. But yeah, I was just happy to get finally under like 11 minutes, because I was, like I said, I was hovering like 12, 13, even 14 minutes for a while, and then I finally got under 11. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, and it was like you did a bunch of practices. You did a bunch of like, quote unquote training up until you actually recorded one. And when you finally did record one and like did it full out, it was the best time you'd ever done. I think you got 10:56. Yep. Or something like that as your final time. So she's on the record books. Yay. As a speedrunner for Riven. So very excited about that.
Also, if you're interested, if you like Myst at all, there is someone making a documentary about Myst, and that has been done before, but he's kind of trying to do more of a like a little bit of the history of them making it, although like he was kind of saying that's been done several times before. A lot of people have done interviews with them, because they are like even Robin was saying they're kind of a great story, because they made a game as two brothers about two brothers, and so it's just like the perfect like story. And and their success was like a big deal, because they made this extremely well done video game in a style that like no one had seen at the time, and then it was the best selling game of all time for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And that's like unprecedented, which we've talked about, before when we were talking about it, but like it is like a huge crazy thing that they were able to do what they did. But yeah, so it seems like this guy is pretty genuinely like was a big fan of Myst back in the day.
Yeah.
And he is a pretty big time director of documentaries. Like he did the Elmo documentary.
Okay.
And he's done a few other ones. And so now he's working on this. I think they're around halfway to the goal. I don't know exactly where they're at.
Yeah, they're in their
moment.
Kickstarter. I think it's in the halfway point. I haven't
yeah.
looked at it in a little bit.
And there's some cool perks and stuff. Yeah, so go check it out because, it's, I think anything that highlights them, showcases them, like gets them more attention for their upcoming games is good because they deserve it. And, they've always been super innovative and all their games are gorgeous and there hasn't been one that I've hated. There's been ones I've gotten very frustrated with because of the puzzles, like Abduction, but I'm excited for their new game, Firmament, which looks like it's going to be just insanely phenomenal and like so cool. And so I'm stoked.
Yeah, should be fun. So, last thing on the docket, the big drop for us, at least, until Stranger Things comes out, pretty much for us. The Umbrella Academy Season 2 came out on the 31st. We watched it on the 31st all day with our friend Cynthia, Athel Artistry on Instagram. And it was, I mean, without spoiling it for the first couple minutes here, what did you think of Season 2?
I thought it was really, really great.
Yeah.
I can't decide. I was talking to someone else, our friend Mike. I was talking to him, and he was saying he kind of felt like Season 2 was better. I've heard a couple people say that they thought it was better. I don't necessarily feel like it was better.
I think it was equal.
I think it was pretty equal. Yeah. I liked the pacing and the soundtrack better in the first season.
Okay.
I just felt like, for some reason, just like the songs that they chose and like the manner of the choreography. I mean, there was good choreography in both, but there were such good songs and like it just like made every scene better.
Yeah. And
this one, there was good music, but like Mike was kind of saying, like, the first season had so many great like 60s songs and stuff like that, and you were hoping for even more of that. But then there was like some weird like modern day kind of jazzy covers of like Billie Eilish and stuff, and like it was just not. I mean, which they kind of do unexpected things, like the fact that they used Constantinople for a fight scene, which who does that? But like in the first season at least.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, I still liked it. I felt like there were still some good choices there. But yeah, I honestly just think they were both equally really, really well written and executed, and
I think so too.
And I thought the costuming was phenomenal again, and
that's where I think this show has the advantage. Like the Season 2 has the advantage. Like I think you're right. I think the pacing of Season 1 is good. I think the music choices in Season 1 are phenomenal. This season, not as great, but still pretty good. This season, costumes, way better. Everything looks so crisp, so to the scene and to that era. And the other thing is, I think they really nailed their cinematography so much better.
Yeah.
The second season.
Agree, yeah.
I think that, they were doing weird things to me. Like, I think I mentioned it when we talked about Season 1. But they did this thing where... And they did it a couple times in this season where they focus so hard. They do that, like, almost like you're on the portrait mode on your phone. Like, but in the cinema camera. Like, it's so focused on the face, everything else is blurry, but to the point where everything else looks fake. They didn't do that as much this season. Everything kind of... You got a lot more wide shots. A lot more artsy, like, panels, I think, that were more comic book style panels. And yeah, I just, I thought they wrapped it up really, really well this season. They kind of like, I thought you said the pacing was a little bit off because I felt like we kind of got a couple of more filler episodes in this one than we did in the first one. Which they needed to. There's a lot of lore that they kind of have to get through. But yeah, I enjoyed it overall. But yeah, I don't know that I would also say that it was better than season 1. I can't. I don't think I can get behind fully saying that.
Yeah. But they definitely, I like that they gave Ben a bigger role.
Yes. And we'll talk about why.
He got to be more confident and stuff like that. And
everyone had pretty good arcs. I think we're gonna go through each arc on its own, and go through that.
But I also have to say that there are 2 pretty big moments in the show that are like straight from the comic that I am like super happy about.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
And then there are a couple of very intense moments from history in the show.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I think is incredible. But yeah, so from here on out, we're gonna start going into the spoilers. If you haven't checked out Umbrella Academy season 2 or season 1 yet, go to Netflix. They're exclusive to Netflix, so check those out and let us know what you think. But we're gonna let you know what we think of every little detail now. So obviously from here on out, spoilers. If you haven't watched the show, please go watch the show. I wanted to say it again because sometimes people don't listen, and and that has been proven by 2020 and the Backstreet Boys concert. But yeah, so do you want to go through just story beats, or do you want to go like arc by arc?
I mean, I don't know.
It's hard. Well,
it's a lot.
Let's do little bits here, because I wanted to say that we were so amped by just the first sequence.
Yeah, I know. I want to like go watch it again because I was talking to Mike about it today, and I was like, "God damn, it's so fucking good, so good."
Yeah.
Just to see like all of them in like full action mode.
Yeah.
Because you saw a little bit here and there at like the finale, but you didn't really get to see them working as a team.
Yes.
And in this
you didn't ever get to see the Umbrella Academy together.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is like you never even like, because obviously Vanya wasn't a part of the Umbrella Academy in the day. So it was getting to see all of them grown up using their full potential powers, like all of them together, including Ben and Vanya. And that was like so fucking dope. Like just so cool. And then sadly they have to, it's not real. It didn't really happen. They had to go back. Well, I guess it did happen in that universe, but then they had to go back in time and try to stop it from happening.
Yeah.
As they usually do. So that was like pretty intense, and then it was interesting that they all got dropped into different different years within the 60s.
Yeah. I thought that was a very interesting story device to like give each character a different path within the 60s.
Yeah.
Instead of just being all dropped together. Mm-hmm. It was an interesting way to do the you got to break up the group.
Yeah.
You got to do these pockets of groups, and they do that with Stranger Things too. Mm-hmm. You have an ensemble cast. They can't just be all together all the time. It's just gonna be too many faces on screen. Mm-hmm. So you got to break up the crew somehow. Mm-hmm. So that device was very intriguing. Mm-hmm. Before we go into that, I wanted to say, were you happy? I mean, were you happy to see? I obviously was happy to see Hazel. Yeah. Again. Sad to see that he was only in that one scene.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like it was like a little like cherry on the sundae to me.
Yeah.
Like you already kind of just suspect that they're all dead anyway.
Yeah.
So just getting to see him again and to hear him say that like he was with his wife Agnes until her end, and then he like gave his life to save Five, which is like pretty fucking amazing. Like considering in the last season they were trying to kill him constantly. The fact that he like gave him the film that he needed, like that was the key to everything, and then sent him away and like took the bullet for him basically. So that was like, so it was like him getting to like come back, like kind of give a nod and then be a hero, which was pretty amazing because he already kind of was a hero. Like he was like, no bitch, like I don't want to do this, like I'm fed up, like I've been doing this for too long and like it's always the same thing, and you know I just want to live my life. And that was like, that's why we loved him so much as a character, was that he broke away from the mold and didn't, you know, he wanted to just, he loved this older woman, and they were so sweet together. And
Yeah.
they were just very pure and happy and wanted to live life together, and they did. So,
and I think you just as a viewer, you're like, that guy was so good that you want to see him for the whole season. But
you're like, you kind of wish
nice
that maybe
treat.
he would be a part of it. He may be a part of the next season. Who knows? That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, and that's the nice thing about these resetting timelines is that you keep thinking, or you'll think that someone's gone forever, and you're kind of sad, but then you're like, oh, well, now they're going to reset the timeline again, so we might see him again. That's cool. Actually, Cynthia pointed out a really cool part, and I can't remember exactly. It's one of the ministry shots. But there's a big staircase, and for a second, and I'm like so glad Cynthia caught this. 'Cause it's a fucking awesome Easter egg. But there's a moment when I think it's when
Diego is at the commission.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's when Diego goes
right.
the first time Diego goes to commission. Yeah.
There's this moment where they pan down the staircase, so they're looking at like the front doorway, and you see Cha-Cha holding her head and walking out the door, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then I kept hoping maybe she would just pop up at one point, but she never did, so maybe she'll come back in the next season. But I thought that was really awesome. She's like, oh, look, it's Cha-Cha. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
She's like, I saw her. I was like, oh my god. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I really liked the fact that because I mean they did have the part where Klaus had already gone to the 60s, so now this is like, or I guess the 70s ish, more like Vietnam
he was
era.
more Vietnam era, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, so it was just interesting to see them all like trying to cope with being there. So it's like his mission was to save his love who died, or try to save him, which, you know, in time travel, that shit just doesn't work. You can't just go up to your old, like, either your old self or old, like, flame and be like, hey, guess what? I'm your lover from the future, when he's not even sure if he's gay yet. Yeah. It's like you just fucked his mind up completely. And then he basically pushed him into going to the war anyway. So, but then I guess I was reading someone saying, like, that you kind of hope that maybe, like, even once he does enlist, like, he remembers that, like, what he told him about the hill, and maybe he does things differently, and so maybe he doesn't die.
Yeah.
You never know, but
little Doc Brown situation,
something like that. Yeah, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna take the info, but I am gonna take the info. So yeah, and so like, yeah, I liked. I mean, it was interesting to see, and kind of also sad to see that like Klaus was like trying to, you know, be the good guy, and then getting rejected, and then falling back into being a druggie again, and then you know, Ben's still trying to, like, you know, fruitlessly, like, try to tell him not to do these things because he knows it's bad for him. And then eventually he learns how to possess Klaus's body, and basically is like, hey, I've been dead for a really long time. You owe me one because you're a piece of shit. So let me have a day in your body. And so he does. And so that's kind of, it was kind of funny. Like, it was also kind of weird. I don't know. I didn't love the way they executed that so much.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's, you know, it was, you know, Ben's been trying to, like, I think the arc is kind of like, Ben just wants to have a connection again. Yeah. He wants to be able to.
Well, I think he wants to talk to his family, too.
He wants to talk to his family. He's always kind of isolated. He only has Klaus, and Klaus isn't together enough for Ben to help the family when he wants to. Yeah. And the fact that, you know, that actually ends up paying off so well, I think it kind of makes up for the clunkiness of the middle, where he kind of wants to, like, tell this cult girl that he loves her. That was a little bit weird, like, it seemed like kind of forced or whatever, because he just wanted to, like, have a connection. But I get it to an extent, because you get to that end point where he's like, the thing is, I wanted to help my family. I wanted to be there for my family and do the right thing. And oh man, do we want to go to that scene yet, or do we want to? We work out so we can go to it, but like,
because then, like, I mean, there's so much. I don't know if I want to sit here and explain everything because I'm kind of tired. But because it is a lot. It's like a lot. The season's 10 hours worth of stuff that happens. So like, there's this whole thing with Vanya, where she gets hit by a car and kind of gets adopted by this family.
Yeah, that's the Marty McFly.
Back to the Future. Yeah. But in this case, like,
she does have amnesia.
Yeah, she's living with a family. She has amnesia. She doesn't remember who she is. Which I was telling Chris is kind of interesting because in the second comic book, well, in the first comic book, instead of the family like kind of holding Vanya down and trying to suppress her, number 5 just shoots her in the head.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't die, but she's basically like she's fucked up and she has to have brain surgery and stuff like that. So then the next 2 books, she's literally just in a wheelchair. So obviously they do a lot more with her instead of that because they're like, no, we don't want her to be comatose. So, but it does explain that like I said, in the second and third novel, she has a lot of brain damage and like doesn't remember a lot of her previous life, and so that kind of does tie into this and stuff. And then so there's this whole thing with this like this boy that she's kind of nannying for who's autistic, and then eventually like she ends up having to try to save his life, and in doing so she kind of gives him some of her powers, which kind of turns into a thing later on. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's just interesting how like the story goes on, like they show that there's this Indian girl who has her parents murdered when she's a child and is taken away by the ministry specifically by the handler.
Yeah.
And raised as her daughter, basically. And then as the series progresses, you kind of get the hint that she either has similar powers, or what we find out is that she's basically like Rogue.
She's a mimic.
Yeah. She's like Rogue, where she can like take people's powers and like use them as her own.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you realize that like essentially what Hargreaves did is the same thing that the handler did. She's to kind of like try to combat the Umbrella Academy, and by having this like super assassin to try to take them out and everything. And then Allison has her own storyline where she gets married again, and it's in the middle of the civil rights movement, and like
that's actually one of my favorite parts of the show. It's incredible. Mainly because the guy that they chose to be her love interest, and the way that they reveal it is so good. The guy who plays Ray, I can't remember his name. I don't know if you're looking it up right now, but the guy who plays Ray is incredible. I think that they kind of had to, because you go to the 60s and you have a character like Allison who is going to if she gets dropped in by herself, it's going to be a shock. Mm-hmm. So, and she's lost the ability to talk at the end of that season, first season. So there's complications there too. So the way that they did the evolution of where she's at and why she's doing the things she's doing is incredible. And the way that they depicted 60s racism is very, very raw and very accurate, I think, to the time. And as we've, trying to do our more education of ourselves to like know what was going on back then and how it relates to what's happening now. I was listening, I saw something about, the sit-ins, and they obviously did a version of the sit-ins in the show. And there was this art exhibit that I can't remember which place did it, but it's you basically sit at a lunch counter and you have these headphones on, and there's a tactile like seat that you're in, and you basically see how long you can last listening to the chatter of people behind you trying to get you to get out of the restaurant. Yeah, and it's heartbreaking and like awful, and it's exactly what they show. They didn't skimp away from it. They didn't shy away from that, how harsh that reality is for Black people during that time. So I thought that was really, really good. And it did, it's jarring. So if you can get, I would say kind of a warning on some of those episodes. It is a little rough mentally. Yeah. But Allison's story is really, really good. And the way that they even concluded the stuff with Ray, even though it gets a little goofy at the end, because there's these like Swedish characters, and those guys get killed in the house or whatever. Like that stuff gets a little goofy, but everything leading up to that is really, really fantastic. And like I know people are very happy about the line or crazy about that line that Ray says. Like I wouldn't give up this year I've had with you for a lifetime with anyone else. Like that's a really, really good written line. Yeah. And for him to do it, that's great. I thought it was really well executed. Yeah. But yeah, I think that that whole storyline was a lot of like just really fantastic. Diego's storyline was kind of interesting. I think Diego and Luther are always like, to me, the least emotionally equipped to do anything.
Yeah.
Which I think is intentional.
Well, they kind of are in the comics as well. I mean, they just argue constantly.
Yeah.
It's just their dynamic is they're 1 and 2, and they always want to be 1. You know? They always want to be better than the other one.
Team 0.
Yeah, Team 0. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so.
But I thought, it was great it was funny to see, it's fun to see Diego's kind of, like, evolution as, like, a person who's kind of brash and not altogether, like, a planner. Like, he's very stealthy. He's, like they said in the thing, he's Batman, but aim lower. He has
great.
a lot of skill
Yeah.
and all that stuff, but he doesn't always think it through, which is the unfortunate part about him. And he gets himself in these situations where he didn't think it all the way through.
Yeah.
And then you finally get to the end where he actually does get to talk to Lila and tell her, like, how he feels and what he thinks they should do, and actually like expresses his emotions correctly, which I think was great. But yeah, there were 2 things you said with the comic book that you were super excited that they actually did.
Yeah.
So one I know was the commissioner guy.
Yeah.
You were super happy about that.
The handler, yeah.
Yeah. The original handler, I guess, the other handler.
Yeah. Yeah, that, because when I read the comics, I remember pointing out to Chris, like, I showed him, I was like, oh, isn't this funny? Like, this is who the handler is or the head of the commission is in the books. Is this fish in a helmet that, like, is piloting a person, I guess, or something like that. Some human fish cyborg thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, isn't this weird? And then they fucking did it in this. I was just like, what the fuck? I just couldn't believe it. I was like, holy shit, they actually fucking did the fish man. Like, I can't believe it. And it was awesome. It looked great. It looked so good. I also love that they showed, like, baby Pogo. That, like, broke my fucking heart. I was like, oh my god. Oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fucking cute as shit. Also thought it was cool that they showed that Grace was actually a person.
Yes.
That he modeled mom after, basically. That she was an actual human being that he married, I think. Or possibly.
Yeah,
married?
he's dating in they're dating in the show.
Yeah. I don't know
it's
if
his
they got
girlfriend
married,
or whatever,
but
you know what is funny though? Like, I think it's worth it to point out that the first time you saw Mom, you were convinced it was not her.
She just looked and sounded so different that, like, yeah, it just threw me off. And I mean, I was realizing, obviously they made her complexion a lot more pale and, like, robotic looking.
Yes, yeah.
And they did her hair very differently, and her makeup was very, like, very 60s and, like, red lipstick and everything. And so seeing her more subdued with her hair down, and then, like, she had, like, a southern accent, and, like I said, her whole face just looked different because of the makeup they put on her and everything. So I was just like, I just kept saying, is that her? Like, I can't, is that really her? Is that her?
Yeah.
Because it just, yeah, and I had to look up, and I was like, holy shit. They just, like, I mean, which is, like I said, it's a testament to the art department and the fact that, like, and also just going from her wearing that, like, very, like, like, very 60s mom to being in just kind of like a black, like, evening gown type thing. It's just very different. Well, I guess she dressed more like 50s housewife in as a robot, whereas normally she just looked like a kind of posh person from the 60s. So it was just a lot of differences that I was just like, holy shit. And I mean, I think she probably had, like, a very, like, platinum blonde wig, whereas I think that was just probably her actual hair, which was, like, a dirty blonde. So it's just, there's so many things and aspects that can make a person look different, but she just looked so different that I was just like, is that really her? Holy shit. Yeah. So it was interesting to just, like, because Diego and Mom were so close, him seeing her again, just kind of, like, losing it, like, holy shit, like, that's actually, you're an actual person, holy shit.
Yeah.
But then also because he loves his mom as his mom and wants her to be safe, he's like, you don't need to be with this man, like, he's awful, like, he hates his dad, like, and he knows that, and now he suspects he's gonna kill the president, and so he's just like, he feels protective over this woman because it's his mom, or he sees it as his mom, and so he's just like, get out of here, like you need to get away, like don't date him, he's awful.
Yeah.
And but then it's like, do you not realize that this means that like if she's not in his life, then he may not actually make her into a robot, and then she won't be your mom? Like, come on, Diego
doesn't think about these things.
No, I know, and that's the thing. It's like literally nobody thinks about the consequences of the things. That
anything that Luther does, I'm just like, Luther, you can't do this by yourself.
Yeah, no,
don't do it.
Yeah, literally all the time. He's just a child.
Yeah,
basically, because he literally gets sent to the moon as a child. And so, like, every emotion he has is just extremely visceral, and, like, he just doesn't know how to handle life because he's been abandoned for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's just a man-child. That's it. Like, he's very big, but he's, like, all he can think of is, like, I kill, I hit, and, like, my girlfriend doesn't love me, so fuck everything. Like,
yeah.
Like, that's all his brain can comprehend. And he just, like, yeah, he just assumes that, like, Allison's just gonna wait for him eternally all the time, no matter what. Like, and she's not. Like, she's obviously like, she wants stability, and if he's not there, she's not gonna wait around for him, which I like in a story that, like, you know, she cares about him, but also I think possibly there might still be. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's hard because, like, I just liked that they did, like, finally kind of address it.
Yes.
Like, I think Klaus finally says something like, you know, that's weird, right? You guys are actually brother and sister. Like, like, you guys are technically siblings. Like, why are you trying to go after this? Which is true, is like, you know, they have a weird relationship. But yeah, so it's that whole dichotomy too of, like, is them being together even a realistic possibility, because they are, like, they still have, like, the fact that they grew up together as, like, practically like siblings, so it's just kind of weird. So anyway, and then so I think my favorite part of the whole series in general was just that redemption moment of Ben getting to save Vanya. Because I think that's what he wanted to do in the first one, but he couldn't. Yeah. Because, like, all Klaus could do was just manifest him, and all they could do in that moment was try to kill the other people involved in it. But, the fact that, like, they think that she's going to explode again because they're torturing her, because they think that she's, like, a Russian spy, basically. And the fact that he's able to, like, come into her head, and, like, she's kind of in that space that she was as a kid in the bunker, kind of like, you know, in the fetal position, like, I don't know what to do. Like,
and the things he says are like, oh, it's just so beautiful. Just saying, like, he understands, like, why she's the way she is that way, and telling says, her, like, hey, you got isolated. There's a reason why you can't control it, is because they didn't teach you how. Yeah, they were always afraid of you. Yeah, or whatever, and that he understood, and, like, it's such a beautiful, like, bit of dialogue and, like, character like study with them, or I guess, like, character moment with them, just because it was such a like a good way to get them to understand each other, and get her to understand where she was, and that he knew. I think
in that, didn't they do a flashback to his funeral where they're all kind of arguing because he basically said, like, you guys fucked up and you killed him, basically. And Vanya was kind of saying, well, like, oh, you know, if I'd been there, I could have done something. And they're like, you know, shut up, Vanya, or whatever. Yeah. So it was kind of that, too, where he was kind of, like, forgiving her and saying, like, you know, don't worry that you didn't do enough, because, like, it didn't matter. Like, you know.
And it was just such a beautiful little scene. The hug at the end, because he's like, oh, I just haven't had a hug in so long, or whatever. Yeah. Oh God, it hurts. It hurts the heart. But
he may not be dead, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
In another universe, he didn't die, so it's all good. He's kind of a dick.
Emo scarred Ben,
and he might be a dick, but it's okay.
Okay. Before we go to the, like, official ending, I guess. I did want to say that obviously Klaus is your boy. I think people know that. You've cosplayed him before. I think you're planning to cosplay him again, because the cult Klaus is fantastic. What a beautiful look!
It's so good. Yeah, it's so good.
He has a lot of funny looks too. Like obviously he has this like at one point he's just literally wearing like a cloth diaper doing yoga and then like speaking to the cult. Like what a perfect way to introduce or put Klaus in the 60s.
Yeah.
Make him a pseudo like faux guru.
Yeah.
Cult guy.
I mean, he can speak to the dead and
yeah.
He can. But that was another thing that I nitpicked about was that they have a scene where Klaus levitates, and in the book, in all the books, he literally never walks anywhere. He just levitates because he has the power to levitate. But they've never shown him levitating except for that scene in the second season, and it's actually Ben holding him up. Which I was like, come on, like he doesn't need Ben to hold him up.
Yeah,
like, it's kind of stupid, but anyway. But yeah, so I mean, I guess it makes sense because like, but at the same time, like, because they make it seem like when he and Dave have the falling out or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like he tells like Klaus like, oh, you're gonna like go back on 10 years of being sober or whatever, and I was like, so you're telling me the entire time he's been a cult leader he hasn't done any drugs? I'm like, I think that's some bullshit right there. But that's just me, especially because in the comics he's just a drug addict constantly, and he's just never sober. So I don't know, it's just interesting to me that they like were like holding on to him being sober. I'm like, really? But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe he felt like, you know, he was able to use his powers more when he wasn't you know, drinking or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know what I was trying to say about that, but I think it's a great that he somehow didn't do drugs the whole time.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense especially in the 60s.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think jumping forward to the ending. We get this big fight scene on the farmhouse. You get to see the full extent of some of the powers of some of the guys, which, like, one of the things that we didn't realize until it happened is that basically Diego's real power is that he can control metal projectiles.
Yeah, he can actually be like Magneto and bend metal, which I was like...
Which they gave you hints of throughout the episodes.
So,
like,
yeah.
I don't think they really showed you that he could control it with like a hand movement in the first season, because it's just like he's just really good with knives.
Yeah, he's just throwing them.
Yeah, but in this season there was more of him bending the knife and like curving it around things, which is not like physically possible. But then it culminates in the end with this like scene where he literally deflects all of the bullets coming from these agents, and then you get to see badass Vanya getting to do the thing that she does best, which is just wreck people. Yeah. But I thought the fight scene they did with Lila was really good for her being able to absorb and redirect their powers. I thought that was really interesting. And then they also pay off a moment that 5 I thought was a great, like, because there was that scene where they go to the dinner party with Hargreaves, the father, and they all talk to him trying to convince him not to kill Kennedy, even though that wasn't really his plan, or whatever, which is revealed later. But 5 gets this great moment of talking with his dad and finally getting that kind of like closure of being like, I was a dick when I was a kid to you. Yeah, I thought I didn't realize how much you were trying to do for us or whatever.
Yeah, well, because it's an interesting thing, because it's like he's in that moment he's older than his father.
Yeah.
Was when he's talking to him there, and he already knows his dad's smart then, but he's like, he goes, you told me like not to, that I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was doing because I jumped too far forward and too far backward. Then that's when he gives him the thing and says like, why don't you try just working in seconds instead of like minutes or hours or days? Just work in seconds. And then
basically finally, just saying you're like, biting off more than you can chew. Yeah.
And he finally kind of goes like, yeah, you might be right. Yeah, like maybe I've been like trying too hard or whatever. I need to scale back. And then that's basically what saves them all in the end, is because like all this shit happens terribly and they all get killed. But he kind of realizes in that moment, like right before he's gonna die, that like he can just if he tries as hard as he can, slowly go backward in time, slowly, and go to, okay, this is the moment where I need to take action. And so So that was an interesting thing.
That's a good payoff.
Yeah.
Good payoff. Oh, the other thing I don't think you mentioned was like that came from the comic books was the 5 versus 5 fight.
Yes.
Which I thought
that and then the old 5 versus young 5 fight, it happened slightly differently.
Yeah.
In the comics, and also because like older 5 was like had like he basically looked like the 5 from the first season who had the huge long beard and was all scraggly and shit. Like they clean him up for the 60s or whatever, but he in the comics he just looks like this grizzled old dude, and like they have this like crazy fight or whatever. So they still did the crazy fight, but in the comics it involved more agents from the Ministry, and it didn't have anything like that. It was literally just the two of them and Luther, which actually Luther and Diego were involved in that fight in some capacity as well.
Oh, okay.
But they only had Luther being involved in it, which was still kind of interesting. But yeah, so that was kind of intriguing in that way. And then, so that was kind of from the comic books. And then the other thing that was in the comic books that I found hilarious is that literally it's not on the very first page that you, like when you open the comic, there's a panel to the left and a panel to the right. And the panel to the right, like the third panel down, is you see Hargreaves' face as like a mask in a trash can, and it says, and he was an alien from outer space. And so it's literally on like the first page of the graphic novel that Hargreaves is an alien. And there is a scene toward the beginning, I think, of the first season where they show him with his wife. But you don't really know what's happening, and she's like, she's giving him the violin and telling him to find someone who loves it. And then like they're showing all these rockets going off the ground, but it doesn't really look like Earth. So you're kind of like, okay, so is this a different planet or is this Earth in the future? Like nothing's explained. She's just talking to him, and then it shows him like being on Earth in like the 30s or 40s or something, and him buying the Umbrella Academy and everything like that, and then him going and finding the children. And so like it's kind of hinted at, but they never say that he is. But then literally they have the scene from the scene that they show where he takes his face off and puts it on the chair or whatever, and then he's this alien. And so he finally reveals that to the 12 men or whatever in the room, and then kills all of them. Yeah. And
so the kids still don't know.
Yeah, the kids still don't know. But but I don't know that they ever know in the comics either until possibly later. But I was just like, yeah, I'm glad they finally did it, because we all knew. Yeah. Like everyone who read the comics knew, because it was literally on the first page of the comic book. But they waited so long. They literally like the end of the second season to be like, oh yeah, I guess he's an alien. It's like, I knew that. Like, why did you have to wait this long? So it's an interesting like piece of lore.
Yeah. I do wonder if they're going to address it with the kids at all for the third season.
But I think part of, and I, like I said, didn't really get that, because obviously no matter what they do, Kennedy still gets shot. Yes. And that's exactly what happens in the comic books. But in the comic books, somehow, I forget what the Ministry breaks some kind of deal with Allison, and she ends up basically sitting in for Jackie, and she tells Kennedy she heard a rumor that the back of his head exploded, and that's how he dies in the comic books. But which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a little wild.
So I knew they weren't gonna do it that way in the TV show, but like I still was kind of like, that'd be kind of cool if they threw it in at the end, but who knows. But in the comics, they kind of made it seem like it had to be that Kennedy died, because if he didn't, Hargreaves would have met with him and he would have given him nuclear weaponry, his like nuclear like his like alien nuclear energy,
Yeah.
basically, and then that would have been the cataclysmic.
Well, I think they
thing,
kind of implied
basically.
that basically if Kennedy didn't die in the way that in the series here, if Kennedy didn't die because Vanya exploded, they would have thought that Russia had actually planted a bomb here, and that would have caused World War III.
Yeah, and that's
Basically.
how that. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
that's how they did it in the show. But in the
the
comic book, they said the reason that Kennedy had to die was because if he didn't, then Hargreaves would have met with him and given him alien technology, and then the world would have gone into World War
okay.
III, and
Yeah,
everything
I
would
missed.
each
I missed the section of whatever. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so it's like I said, it's still similar, but
Yeah.
it was two different ends, kind of like.
Interesting.
But yeah,
It's just crazy how they have to balance what the comic book does versus what they do on TV. Everything, some things work in comic books, some things don't work on TV. Some things work in TV, some things that don't work in comic books.
Yeah.
So it's
and like and I get that, like, you know, I'm glad that they really, because if they literally took Vanya's character straight from the comics, like, they don't give her much.
Yeah.
Like, she's kind of a shitty person, and then she gets even more shitty, and then becomes the white violin, and then almost destroys the world, so they shoot her, and then literally the next two comic books, she's just in a wheelchair, brain dead, basically.
Yeah.
So Allison has a lot to do, and, like, you know, Five always has a lot to do, and so but Vanya never really has anything to do. So I'm glad in that sense that they gave her way more story.
Yeah.
And, like, gave her more life, and there was
And
still
way more heart
there was
in
still
this season,
yeah, and
too.
there was still elements of her, like, coming to the realization through the comic books that, you know, that she had been abandoned, and, like, that they weren't letting her have her full potential, but they kind of speed that along a lot faster than they did in the season, which I felt was a lot better, where they really gave you that, like, the progression of how bad it was, and then her being locked away and all this stuff, and so they don't really
You're kind of emotionally rooting for her a lot,
exactly.
because you understand how isolated she was, compared to the kids and what she's been going through. Yeah.
But then it's just interesting to see that because she doesn't have any memory of not being able to use her powers, she's so much more pure in this sense that, like, she just intuitively knows, like, how to use her powers, like, from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't have any kind of, like, doubt. It's like when that bullet comes at her, she's just like
yeah.
Immediately, like, and it's kind of how she discovers her powers before, where it's just this emotional response, and she's using the vibration of the sound of the gun to, like, fracture it or whatever. But yeah, I just liked that they didn't have to have her struggle as much with, like, realizing that she had this power, but because she didn't know that she didn't, she just inherently felt it within her that she could do it. So I thought that was cool, and I liked the storyline between, you know, her and the woman and everything.
Yeah.
But
Sissy.
yeah, it was just sad.
Which I think it's a sad. I mean, there's a lot of sad storylines because obviously, like, these people fall in love, and then the only one that's kind of maybe hopeful, maybe Diego's, if he can figure out where she is. But, like, the Sissy thing, yeah, it kind of becomes heartbreaking because she can't move on, like, from the 60s, because she kind of knows that that's not her place and it's dangerous for her kid and all that stuff. And then, you know, with Ray can't go either because Ray has a fight to fight. He's there for the civil rights movement. Like, that's not going to change. He needs to be there. So, I think it's an interesting way.
I just liked that she made a point where she's like, you'll still be able to fight it in the future. Don't worry. Like, you could definitely do it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so the implication is at the end of the season is obviously they fixed whatever they were going to do. They didn't, no one saved Kennedy. So they jump back to the future thinking that they are safe. They are in their house. But lo and behold, they find Ben is number one now because his portrait is on the wall. And there is a Sparrow Academy in their home. Because they are not the kids of the Hargreaves, of Hargreaves. They are not the kids who got chosen. So I'm very intrigued because the way that they did the silhouettes, you obviously don't see any of the characters besides Ben. There's one that's just like green cube. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, and I haven't, and it's funny because I didn't, I purposely didn't read the third one thinking that, Well, because I was so confused when I read the first two after watching the first season that I thought that they had combined the first two books into one thing since they already had kind of a little bit of the Kennedy story in there with like Old Five and Young Five.
Yeah.
But then after watching the second season, I was like, no, the first season was like similar to the first book. And then the stuff that happens in the second book is pretty much just the second season. So I think whatever ends up happening in the third book will, at least some of it will be similar to, I'm assuming, what will happen in the third season. Because it seems like they're kind of... And I think there is a foreword to the third book by the co-writer of the series that I need to read because I just kind of saw it, but I started like kind of flipping through the novel. I think I want to go back and reread the first two again just because now I'm like getting events mixed up and stuff. And I kind of want you to read them too because I've been trying to describe them too, but it's probably better if you just read them. But yeah, so now I am kind of intrigued as to, just because I don't feel like, because I had read the second one, the only thing that was cool is that, like, I was like, oh shit, they actually did the fish guy. And they did the Old 5 years, Young 5 thing. But that was pretty much all that they took from that. And we were kind of speculating that possibly, because in the comic books, Mom, I think I had mentioned it before too, but Mom is still an android, but she looks very different. She basically almost looks like a mannequin on top of like a hoop skirt, and she has no arms, and she's just like a hollow shell with organs that you can kind of see. And she has like just dark, like she's very dark, like brunette black hair. And in comics, obviously she's blonde and you know, actually has like full arms and legs and everything. And like, I guess technically she does have arms and legs. She just doesn't wear them all the time, I guess, because they're uncomfortable or something. But yeah, she's just essentially this hollow shell, and then she can like add her own limbs to herself and stuff. But again, maybe they just kind of were like, okay, that's not going to work for this budget we have, so let's not do that. But
it's a lot of CGI to make that work.
But then it seemed like some of what the handler did in the second season, like she does dye her hair dark and she wears similar costumes to what Mom wears. Yeah. So we were kind of thinking maybe that was like slightly a nod to homage to the old Mom, but who knows?
Yeah. But I'm excited for season 3. I think that they did a good job of leading you to it and leading you to have questions for the next season, and so that you're still intrigued. Because it's one of those things, like with these ensemble casts, it's hard to like give them an arc without pushing them to a narrative that like they leave the team or whatever, and they don't need to still do certain things. But they did a good job of giving you just enough so you feel like they developed, but there's still more to go. Especially with Diego and Luther. I think that they did that really well. And now that you have now Klaus is going to have to deal with Ben not being there anymore, but Ben is a different Ben. Like, so that's going to be the thing to deal with. Yeah. And, you know, Vanya's more secure in her powers, but now she is in a place where she's not even any of them are part of the family anymore. It's a very interesting place to leave the story. So we'll see.
So like, I don't know if they're going to be at odds, if they're going to work together at some point. Like, I don't know how that's all going to come to fruition, but we'll see.
We are all Destiny's children, just FYI. But
don't go chasing waterfall. So fucking stupid, but amazing.
I love that. I love that he uses just fucking shitty song lyrics, or not shitty song lyrics, but like generic.
Don't talk shit about
That's
TLC.
not what I meant. Generic song lyrics to be his like mantra-esque quotes as a cult leader. It's a great way to do it for Klaus. Oh man. But anyway, yeah, we loved it. I thought, you know, there's obviously every piece of media has little things maybe you don't like, but I didn't really find that many things I didn't dig about this season. I would say, like we said before, the music maybe a little bit less intriguing. I thought it was funny to throw in Backstreet Boys. But
I hated that.
I thought it was really funny.
I thought it was really dumb. For that scene, it just was really, really dumb. I was just like, come on. Like, any other song would have been appropriate. Why?
Anyway. But yeah, like you said, there were some weird choices, but some of the
like I actually kind of like the Billie.
Really
I kind of like the Billie Eilish cover. Someone was saying they didn't really like it, but that's it's fine. But yeah, I thought the Backstreet Boys was stupid.
We got to get another 5 awesome like violent Nightcrawler scene, which was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Because just seeing 5 do that stuff.
But like seriously, I don't think anything beats that opening scene or that one scene. The first scene you see him
for the action
in the diner, like it's perfect.
Oh yeah, it's great.
So
with Istanbul.
Good. Oh my god,
so good.
It's
so
perfect. Good. It's perfect. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like when I knew I was like, oh damn, this is a fucking dope show. This show is dope.
Awesome.
Yeah. So.
All right, well, that's pretty much it. If you would like to, please, I think we have all the promotion stuff, but we do have masks on TeePublic. So if you go to our site, thenerdlies.com, and click the TeePublic link, merch link, you can go there and purchase masks to wear outside so that you are safe and healthy during this time. Hopefully you are getting to do some creative endeavors or whatever you're doing, play some video games. If you ever want to come visit our island, Mungo Jungo, on Animal Crossing, please send us a message, and you can come by. We'll water flowers.
You can do a dream code, too, if you want to just explore our island.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
We should just have it on there,
yeah. But yeah, we have a dream. We'll upload our thing to the dream thing so that you guys can visit whenever you want.
Yeah.
We're not completely finished with the island yet, but we will have some cool stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully you guys have a great week, time. Yeah, go forth and be nerdly.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey everyone, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've had, please do us a favor and go on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher and write us a review, and just subscribe to us on any of the platforms that you have. You can follow us on our social media at the Nerdlies, pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and what's the words? Instagram, YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, the Nerdlies. We do need more subscribers on that so we can lock in our channel and stuff like that. Rachel's social media is
Lady Raygun, LadyRaegun.
Yeah, on Twitter, Instagram, and she has a Patreon account.
Yes.
That we are still shooting stuff for.
And also I have a Facebook. I don't have a Facebook anymore, but I have a Facebook page that is Lady Raygun Cosplay if you want to check that out.
Yeah, and that's also facebook.com/Lady Raygun. But yeah, come follow us and do all the things. We'll see you soon, and thank you so much for supporting the show.
Thank you.
Bye. Go forth and be nerdly.
Who all we don't be sure you ever heard, you see. It will be in your eardrum like an infectious beat. We complete, they like when the short and long hear me. Cause we the Nerdlies, the Nerdlies. All we don't be sure you ever heard, you see. It will be in your eardrum like an infectious beat. We complete, they like when the short and long hear me. Cause we the Nerdlies, the Nerdlies.